Hello, and welcome to Can't Find My Brain for the Fog with Kendra
and Gina, discussing love, loss, and life after.
All right, well, welcome to the first episode of Can't Find My Brain for the Fog. I have to remember that because I get tongue-tied. And we wanted to start this episode just to talk about why we want to do a podcast and tell a little bit about our stories, right? So, I'm Kendra.
I'm Gina. And we are not professionals.
No, we are not professionals.
You will see that very soon.
We are learning this on the fly. But I guess a little backstory. We are both widows, as much as we hate that word. It is what it is. And we're friends. Mm-hmm. We were friends before, but we have become closer since then, I would say. We're closer
Widows
to friends.
make strange bedfellows, so
right?
to speak.
We're sisters in a way. And we wanted to take this first episode and talk about, maybe how we met our significant others, right? Our spouses, our husbands, the loves of our lives. And so I guess I'll start off with talking about Jim. He was my husband, and we were married for, 6 years. 6 years sounds right. And we'd known each other for 10, but it felt like longer, if that makes sense. It was one of those, as soon as we met, it seemed like it didn't take any time for us to just click. And a lot of people thought we were married when we were just dating, and people would call me, by his name all the time. Before we were even married, people just assumed we were married, because we just fit together. We just seemed like we worked together. And I lost him in 2023. It was very sudden and very unexpected, and really a lot to go through, and I was only 34 at the time, so it was, or almost, I wasn't even 34 yet. Yeah, I was 34. I can't tell you my own age half the time, but it was a lot to go through, and thankfully, I did have friends to help, thankfully, but also in a very sucky way, I had friends to help me get through it that had been on that journey, and Gina was one of those, so.
Yeah.
You want to tell a little bit?
Yeah, well, I, much like Kendra, I think I married my soulmate in 2009. I was old when I got married, so I was 45. He was 43. First marriage for both of us, which was great because we didn't come in with a lot of baggage. But I definitely, it was the bright spot in my life. And I didn't think I'd ever get married, so my story is a little bit different because I was older and didn't think that I would ever find somebody to, I don't know if anybody would ever want to marry me, to be honest, but
I felt that way too,
he was up to the challenge. Yeah, he's up to the challenge, and like I said, I think I want to say, we're not any different. One thing I've learned through this whole journey is that we are not different from hundreds of thousands of women out there who are dealing with this every day.
Right.
People lose their husbands at 20. They lose their husbands at 80. It doesn't matter when you lose your significant other, you lose something big.
Right.
And so I lost my husband in 2022. Again, like Kendra, totally unexpected, no sickness, just exercising one day, just literally died instantly. And I think, like Kendra will tell you, just our world just changed from night to day, from day to night, instantly. I guess. And it was devastating. So.
And one of the things I wanted to say, what you were talking about, that it reminds me of something my therapist likes to tell me is that grief is such a weird thing because it's universal. Everyone experiences it, but it's also so very personal that everyone experiences it in their own way.
Yes.
And that's why it's such a weird thing to deal with because we all understand, to some extent, we all have experienced grief at some point in our lives. Mm-hmm. But we also all have to go through it on our own, in our own way.
Right.
So we can't, necessarily tell other people how to do it. There's no how-to on getting through grief, but we hope that this kind of helps people understand how we've gotten through it and kind of maybe give you a little hope that there is a light at the tunnel if you're just now starting out on this process.
One I like for Kendra, Kendra is a little more reclusive than me.
I'm a
homebody.
I'm a
and I'm a very extroverted person. So, you know, what I even just us helping each other, I might say, "Hey, let's get out," and she's like, "No, I don't want to get out," you know, or you know, and I'm not one to stay home while I'm learning. So
Yeah.
we know that everybody's going to be different.
Yeah, everybody's different.
And this isn't an advice thing. This is just a how we do it
We're
thing.
just telling you how we got through it. Yeah, for me, yeah, I don't, and I think some people worry about me because I don't get out, but that's just how I've always been. I've never been an out. I like being home. My home is my comfy place. It's always been that way, no matter where my home was. Like when I was in college, I would spend the weekend at the house. Like I wouldn't, you know, in my dorm, I wouldn't necessarily go out. So that's just, but that is different for everybody, I guess.
Do you feel like since Jim passed away, you've lost your home? I feel
To
that
an
way very
extent.
much.
To an extent, yeah. I think I feel closer to him when I'm at home, in a way.
Amen. I do too.
Because we did spend a lot of time together in our home. You know, this is our home that we bought together and have crafted together, and you know. So I do think, I feel like I've lost a little bit of, I don't know if security is necessarily the right word. Like my safe space is how I would say.
Agree.
Like I don't have, you know, not that there's not people around me that are safe for me to go to, or you know, comfortable for me to go to, but it's not the same. Like
I think you and I've discussed it before, that we've lost the one person that we are the most important to.
yes,
And
and that may be a topic that I don't know if we want
delve
to
in too deeper,
yeah,
but yeah, just kind of a
yeah, I do think it is, and not that we're not important to people in our lives again, but
we're first.
Yeah.
We were first to them.
and I guess that's a good time to bring up this point of like, if you are somebody that knows us, please know that none of this is meant to be like
Yeah,
hurtful
exactly.
to you in any way. And we hear all the time how people don't understand. How do you get through this? How do you do that? I don't understand. And I want to be like, you just get through it. Like, so maybe this peeking into our brains a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can find our brain through
Right.
the fog, right?
Yeah, right.
Peeking into our brains in this process will help people understand a little bit more of how we get through this and like how we've made this journey.
Explain that a little bit, Kendra, because Kendra came up with the name "Can't Find My Brain for the Fog," and I know
Oh my
we'll go deeper into
You want me
it.
to go through all the name processes?
But what do you think? I mean, why? Explain how we
we got to
feel
that.
after this, because
Well,
we
we
both
went
agree is
through-
how we feel.
Yeah, we went through a lot of possible names, but nothing seemed to stick. We had one that we liked, but then we found several others with that name, and we wanted something a little different. We didn't necessarily want to say, you know, Scream Widows in the title, because that carries a connotation for some people, and again, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing we'll probably talk about more later on. But you do feel a lot like there's a fog. You know, there's if you're in any kind of widow groups, if you talk to some widows, there are a lot of people that argue that the second year is worse. Because the first year you're in so much fog you can't think. And I don't know that the second year is necessarily worse. I'm partway through year 2, I guess. Well, no, am I in year 3 now? I don't know.
I'm almost
I'm in
past
2023.
year 3.
So yeah, I just ended year 2 and I'm into year 3. So I don't think that the second year is necessarily worse. I think it still sucks, just in a different way.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the first year, your brain is so like lost in a fog. You feel like you're just doing what you have to do to get through. You're just trying to find your way through because you've lost your structure and your security and your person, more or
Right.
less, and you're trying to figure out how to live in a totally different way now, because nothing has changed, but everything has changed.
Right.
So that's kind of, you do, widow's fog is a real thing. You're very forgetful. Because there's so many things that you have to worry about.
Right. You can't just stop living. You've got to pay your bills.
Yeah,
you've got to go back to work.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but yet at the same time, it's like you tend to be forgetful. You tend to be a little bit snappy. You tend to be a little bit,
Yes.
I feel like I have a lot less patience for certain things.
Yeah, I was told by one person that I was mean, and it really hit me hard because I
not
started
mean.
asking. Well, that's what I was told, but yeah, I mean, but I my exact answer was, well, I'm sad. And
I think our tolerance has changed for things.
yeah, I think it's true. You learn what's important in life and the
Yes.
rest of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm like you though. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't motivate myself to do anything that was a long task.
Right.
Just driving somewhere. People said, well, come visit me. And I was like, well, if you put me in the car,
Right.
pack my clothes, and you drive me there,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But I couldn't pack
Right.
a bag.
Right.
And I think people think, and I'm not that person. I'm not a shrink back little violet. I mean, I could
Right.
always pack a bag, but when Tim died, I couldn't literally put 2 feet in, well, I could put 2 feet in that fall. But yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's part of where we kind of came with the name. And I had a cousin who's further ahead of me on this journey that kind of had told me the same thing about that first year. You're just in a fog because there's just a lot of things you have to decide. And again, back to my therapist, you're in survival mode. That's what she likes to say. You're just trying to do what you have to do. Pay the
Right.
bills, make sure the life insurance policy's done, make sure the estate is taken care of, make sure that the house has the right name on it, make sure that, there's just so many things. Make sure you have health insurance, which was
It's almost
struggle for me.
It's very inconvenient to pass away.
Yeah, it's very inconvenient when someone, because you're suddenly left with all of these things you have to take care of that nobody even thinks about. Which I guess that'll
It's a
be
later topic.
That's going to be
yeah.
another topic of make
We're
sure
gonna
you
hit
have
y'all
these
lots of
things
topics.
taken care of. So,
Why do
yeah,
you
you're
think-
going to find that I think you'll find that even if you're not a widow, you can benefit from
Yes,
this.
I mean,
because
yeah.
either you know somebody who's going through grief, or you've been through it yourself, or it's just you need to be prepared. There are things you need to be prepared for that none of us are prepared for.
Because we all are going to
At some
pass
point,
away.
yeah. At some point, what is it, that quote? None of us gets out of this alive.
Mm-hmm.
So there's at some point we're all gonna, meet the end, and we need to make sure that we are
Yeah.
prepared for the people around us. It's a good way to show we care.
So for you, Kendra, because Kendra came up with this idea of a podcast,
Well,
and both
we're
of
just
us
good talkers.
So yeah, we can flap our jaws. Whether you want to listen or not, it's another thing. But what do you
Hopefully you'll wanna
think?
listen.
What's your first of all, neither one of us are going to get famous.
No,
it's not our purpose.
That is not our plan.
But what is your purpose for doing this? What was your thought process?
Well, one of the things I wanted just for other people to be helpful, because like I said, I feel like there's been a lot of people, I've had a lot of people that have come up to me since Jim died that, somebody else they know has lost a spouse, or another friend that I know has lost a child, or, and somebody that's mutual, somebody that knows that person, or is a mutual friend of ours, has come to me and be like, I just don't know what to say to them. I just don't know what to do.
True.
I just don't know how to help. And so, that's a good lesson. We got to turn the phones off.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to help. And I feel like I was like, maybe if this is something that people could benefit from, like maybe this is a way I can help you see, like, there's not really a right answer, but this is how you can help, or these are some ideas, or and also it's a good for, there's so many, we're in all these groups on Facebook, we're both in some of these widows groups on Facebook, that there's all these women that just, they're so alone. And
Yeah.
you, this is maybe a way for us to say, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone in this, whether you're a widow or a widower, either one, because I don't know the male side of things, but they go through this as well, I'm sure. You're not alone in your grief. You're not alone in your loss. It may be different than mine, but you're not alone. So I think that was two big things.
And I think for you, I think what you said is, I know probably minutes after Jim died, I got a text at church, and Paula, a mutual friend that we have, texted me and told me you lost Jim, and I felt like, first thing I said is, I'm gonna be the poster child for everybody who's lost a husband, because but in my mind, we talked about quotes, and one quote that keeps coming back to my mind is, perhaps you're climbing this mountain so that you can show other people it can be climbed.
Yeah.
And I know, and I looked back in my past when I lost my husband and said, I had an aunt that did it when she was in her 30s. My uncle died in a plane crash when I was young, and she had 3 young children. I have watched friends lose children. One friend of mine lost 2 children 2 weeks apart.
Oh, gosh.
it helps me to see that I'm not alone. And I had to tell myself, everybody has to do this at some point in
Yeah.
time. But my reason for doing the podcast is it helps me spend time with you. And
Right.
I think it's cathartic for me because I love to talk about my husband.
Right. It gives us a chance to talk about him, we're both helpers. I think to an extent. Like there's some people in the world that they just kind of want to help people. Like, you know, we're gonna try to avoid doing video because we're neither one people.
Yeah, you don't want to see us.
We have the voice for radio, not the face for
Yes.
video. But that was a thing Jim used to say. It was he would say I have a no. He would say he had a face for radio. But,
Face
you know.
radio, me too. I got
But-
the body for radio. Okay.
But I think we kind of want to help people, and this is a way to help people. I think hopefully help people understand, you know. And like you said, it is cathartic. It's our own little mini therapy session. So tune in or don't, but
Yeah,
it's
tune in.
gonna.
And-
if nothing else, it helps us. And I do think that we all go through things so that we can help other people
Yeah.
better on the journey with us.
Something
Like,
you and I discussed, and it's just so important to say it first, is both of us are women of faith. And something I've noticed in the widows groups we're on Facebook, there are actually, you know, women out there who don't want to have a faith side of this, and that's fine. That's your thing, but we do, and that's a big part of, at some point in time, that's something we'll discuss, is how our faith got us through. And
I do want to say to that too, though, like if you're not a person of faith, you can still benefit from this, and I hope
Right.
you'll still tune in.
Yeah.
I think you'll still find that, but we do reference our faith.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be like shoving it down your throat
No.
necessarily. But
It's
is
just-
part of who we are, and I know for some people they've gotten angry at God after this.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is not an emotion I have experienced.
no,
And I think it's because, you know, I don't know. I don't know that I could have gotten through this without God.
I could not.
Like,
yeah.
I had God and my dogs at the time, and that's
Yeah.
that's.
I don't think
that-
I think you're right. I don't think I ever felt angry.
I never felt angry
And
at
I don't-
anybody over
I
it.
don't think I ever really, I mean, I guess in my mind I have asked why. I've said,
yeah.
you know, you waited till I'm 45 years old to bring me this spectacular man.
Right.
And I'm going to say that over and over again. You'll get tired of it, but I think he was not perfect, and sometimes I could strangle him. But I had the perfect man for me.
Right, that's what
I
I
was
was
just thinking
thinking.
about it today when I was making my lunch. I was doing some stupid little dance, and I'm thinking, what other man would ever put up with that? You know, so he, you know, but I'm like you. I just, I never got angry, and I never, like I said, I never really said why me. I think the one thing I said is, it can happen to anybody. Why
Right.
not me? And that's another thing that later on down the road we might discuss, is how you kind of, your friendship circle changes, because
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people cannot
They don't know how
stand
to
thinking about
deal-
their own immortality.
Yeah, I think there's that. I think people don't know how to deal with you. They don't know if they're like myself and my stepdaughter. You know, we're very much into the dark humor. We tend to make dark humor jokes. But not everybody's like that, and some people don't know if they can like joke around you, like talk normal around you. They don't know how to treat you. Like, you feel like it's the craziest thing, and I probably should have gotten out more than I did in those first few years. I'll be honest. I probably did go
Close yourself
inward
off, yeah.
more, just because on the one hand you feel like, how is life going on normally when you walk in the grocery store and everybody's moving normally? How are they doing that?
Yeah.
How do they not know that the world has
Yeah.
changed completely?
Agree.
But at
Totally
the
agree.
same time, you run into people you know in the grocery store who knew you and your spouse together, and you feel like people know and are looking at me, and I admittedly didn't go to church as much as I probably should have, and that was part of it. I think was that I felt like people mean well, they want to show you they love you, but it almost becomes suffocating to an extent, because you're like, everybody's looking at me and I don't like being the center of attention. Like, so I think there's two, and it's very hard because those two emotions are like warring with themselves inside of you. Like you feel
Right.
like you don't want anybody to look at you and say, "Oh, she's a widow." Oh,
Feel sorry
I'm so
for you.
sorry. How are you doing? Like you get tired of that, but at the same time, how are people going on with normal life?
Yeah.
How is this happening?
Yeah.
Like,
Especially the people that
and those two things are competing.
you want to experience the grief with someone, and
Yeah.
I mean, you have a stepdaughter. I have no children.
Right.
You know, I'm grieving with his mom, his
Right.
his sisters, my mom. I mean, but a part of me, I don't have children that grieve. There's nobody really that well, I would say
It's
that's right.
different.
Nobody that was really a part of his everyday life.
Right.
And so sometimes I look and I'm like, how can you keep moving on without him? But then I'm thinking, we all have to.
Right.
So hopefully this podcast will be very helpful. Helpful for all of us, and mainly
If
for
nothing
us.
else,
We're
we'll
not
have-
doing it for you. We're doing it for
I was
us.
gonna say, if nothing else, we'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. And I mentioned I have dark humor. We will laugh a lot. We like to laugh.
Yeah.
Because if you don't laugh, you'll just cry all the time.
Well, and I love telling stories
Right.
because my husband was humorous, and
Right.
our relationship
Oh, yeah.
was humorous, and
I think our husbands were a lot more alike, even though they really didn't know each other. They didn't. We knew.
We were
You and I knew
acquaintances.
each other, and you knew
how
my husband.
tell him how we met first time. Do you remember?
The newspaper, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When I used
Yeah.
to work at the newspaper, and I came to write a story about you.
Yeah. And I think then you wrote a story after that about my
wrote a
girls
sto-
that lived with me.
I wrote a story about your husband too
Yeah.
at one point.
Yeah, that's right. I
And then of
forgot
course
that.
you knew Jim, my
Yes,
Jim,
he was-
through your
my
work,
work.
because
Yeah.
he came to you as a patient, and so of course he knew everybody.
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes
yeah.
I feel like he knew everybody, but for some reason they didn't know each other. But yet there's a lot of parallels between
yes.
their personalities and their stories,
And sadly, a lot of parallels to the way they passed.
because they're lost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I lost Jim due to an unknown heart thing that we didn't realize was going
Mm-hmm.
on, and
And Tim died of an arrhythmia. I mean, it's yet to be explained to me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
best told to me as an arrhythmia. Not everybody said he had a heart attack, and I was like, well, it
well,
really
that's
wasn't.
what everybody originally said about Jim, but it wasn't a heart attack
Yeah,
either. It
it's
was an aortic dissection is the
oh
word
yeah,
the
know
word I was
exactly
getting.
what- yeah. Oh gosh.
So, that's what I was told. But
and very different. I mean, you were here,
yeah, we were here.
Yeah.
We were home.
and I was not, and yeah, it's very traumatic. But
It is very traumatic.
But I
It
think
was-
this first session, basically, we've unpacked about everything we wanted to unpack. Just to tell
Right.
you, first of all, we're grieving,
We're grieving.
but we still have joy
Yes.
in the journey.
I
We
think
don't-
that that's important. I think that you can be sad and you can be happy at the same time sometimes, and it's conflicting, and that's another part about grief is that you feel all these emotions at the same time, and it's confusing. But as long as you don't lose your deep down joy, and that goes back to our faith, because we both find our
Right.
joy in Christ, but I think also, you find the silver linings in the sad things, and I'd love to spend some time unpacking that, maybe in a later
Yeah.
session too, of some of the silver linings that have
We're going to unpack lots of stuff.
things.
I guess if I just said say anything in closing on our first session, it's just that we hope that this helps people,
Right.
and that people, if nothing else, they'll laugh, they'll cry, they'll feel, because don't let yourself not feel.
Right.
If this has ever happened to you, the best thing you can do is deal with your grief.
Yeah,
Don't
you just have to deal with it.
don't put it away in a box and
Right.
try to take it out later, because
Right.
it's going to be with you for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah. Grief is a thing that you don't ever. It never goes away. It just becomes part of life, because like we were talking about earlier, where there was great love, there can only be great grief where there was great love, right? Like, it's only because you had such great love for each other that your grief is so strong.
I agree.
And I guess the other thing is bear with us, because we are
Yeah.
learning on the fly as we
we
go.
are learning. We are not technological, and we don't know what we sound
I'm
like.
semi-technological, but I'm an elder millennial, so I'm kind of losing touch with
I
technology
don't know
too.
what I am. If she's an elder millennial, I'm a fossil millennial. So
But I guess we were both going to say, one of the things we wanted to say was a song, right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to try to, each episode we want to try to leave you with a song or a quote that
yeah.
we think has been helpful. So do you want
well, so my closing statement would be a song that we played at my husband's funeral was "The Dance" by Garth Brooks. And the one thing, it is definitely true. I would not have missed the pain. I mean, I would have missed the pain, but I would have had to miss the dance. And definitely dancing in the kitchen with my husband, watching him do his crazy little dances on his way to the shower, just living life with him. I would have never, ever, ever exchanged that to. I can feel crappy, but he brought me so much more joy. And so that's my kind of closing statement, is I definitely would not have missed that.
Yeah, and that's a good song too. That's one of those that we all feel, I think. for me, and it was actually a song I used at Jim's funeral as well. It was a Chris Stapleton song called More of You. I actually heard it the first time, which I think it's been out for a while, but I actually didn't hear it for the first time until like the week Jim died. I think I heard it for the first time, and I was gonna send it to him. Like it was one of those I wanted to send to him. Like I think I might have heard it on Monday, and then he passed away Tuesday, something like that. Like I was gonna send it to him, or maybe I did send it to him. I'm not sure if he even got to listen to it. But it talks about, thinking about you the first time we met, and like how you want, it makes me want more of you, and all the smiles. And then one of the lines that always gets me is when I leave this earth, you'll be holding my hand. And it gives me comfort to know you'll be there, and I'll thank the Lord for the love that we share. And so it's a song that, like I said, I used it at his funeral, and it still touches me. It's one of those I still tear up whenever I hear it come on. Or but yeah, you go look up those songs.
So yeah, definitely. The Dance by Garth Brooks and Chris Stapleton's More of You.
And we want to thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks.
We hope that you enjoy these episodes, that you give us some patience and grace as we learn our way through.
Give us some feedback if that's possible.
Yeah, and
Ask
give us some feedback. We'll try to figure out a way. Maybe we can set up a little something for you to give us some feedback on. I'm not sure yet how we're going to do that, but we'll figure it out. But just bear with us as we work our way through this. And if you know somebody who's going through this, whatever kind of grief it is, because grief can take on many forms and from many causes, just be patient with them.
Yeah, be patient.
And make sure that the best thing you can do is let them know that you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And that you love them. Yeah. Yep, and don't try to fix it. Just listen.
That's right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
All right.